Hey, it's Mr. Johns. Welcome to this presentation on how to use a ruler. I'm serious. So, I used to not teach this, and measurements and quality was not as good. So, I've gone back to teaching how to measure with a ruler in both metrics and US customary, it's called, and things have improved. And so if you think you know how to measure, great. Just use this as a reminder. If you're not really sure how to measure correctly, pay attention to this, because this is a skill that will help you for the rest of your life. The ability to measure correctly. Sometimes there is some math involved, and there's a reason that I prefer metrics, and that's because there's less math. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a math person. Even though I'm teaching tech, for some reason I have like a kind of a wall that comes up as soon as I have to add fractions or divide decimals, right? So keep it simple. That's what I will always preach. Keep it simple. So we're going to be talking about how to use a ruler. And we will keep it simple. All right. In general, there are two main systems of measurement: the metric system, based on the number 10, and most rulers either have one side metric, one side US, or typically you'll have one side that's in millimeters. I don't know if you can see that. You can't. So sometimes my green screen kind of freaks out, especially with my beard. It disappears. So as long as you can see most of me, I'm good. One side of the ruler will be little tiny numbers and lines. That's metrics. And the other will be bigger lines and numbers. That's US customary. So there's two systems. One is metrics based on tens. It's really easy. Everything's in tens. Or the US customary system, which is based on always cutting something in half, and it uses fractions. Okay, so of course, being American, we were raised with inches and feet, right? Miles, everything in US customary. But what countries besides America have not adopted metrics? There's got to be tons, right? It can't just be America. We're a huge, successful, technology-driven country. All countries use metrics, including America, but only three have not officially switched or made it their official unit of measurement. So those three are United States, Liberia, and Myanmar, which used to be Burma. So, I didn't need to draw that triangle. I didn't realize the colors were already there. So that's where those countries are. And look at the size of America. I mean, U.S. plus Hawaii over here, plus Alaska. It's huge. We're a huge, and we're America. Cutting edge, best technology ever. We're one of three still using or not using metrics. So along with Liberia and Myanmar. Everybody else has switched. What's our deal, man? So the United States, we do use metrics with sporting events, mostly the Olympics. That's because we have to. So if everybody else is doing shot put and the result is in meters, we can't use feet, right? It just doesn't work. So also military, medicine, and then scientific studies, we use metrics. So let's look at some details. Pretty simple with a metric ruler. Little tiny lines. Each one is 1 millimeter. If you can count by ones, you got it. That's all you really need. You can just keep counting if you want, all the way up to 200, 300, 400 if you want, but there's a shortcut. The bigger numbers are centimeters. So if you look at the yellow arrow, it's on the fifth little dash. So it's 5 millimeters. Every line is a millimeter. That's it. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. You can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, if you get up to the number 1, you could then call it 1 centimeter if you want. Or you can keep calling it 10 millimeters. It's the same thing. Same. There's no fractions. There's no cutting in half. It's not complicated. Once you get up to 2, it's 2 centimeters. How many millimeters? 20. That's it. Okay, so really easy to read a ruler in metrics. And one of the reasons I prefer the metric system is the millimeters are about as small as you can get. I mean, they're pretty small. And so when I'm designing and 3D printing things, I need smaller than a 1/16 of an inch. And I guess I should show you sometime the difference between a 1/16 of an inch and a millimeter. The millimeter is smaller. So I need it to be that accurate sometimes. If you're trying to make something fit perfectly together, a part, a piece, a millimeter is great. In fact, in some circles, people say it's okay to be off a millimeter or less. I mean, that is so small. It's okay to be off in some areas a millimeter less, but you don't want to be off a fraction of an inch. All right, so that's one reason I prefer millimeters. So when I'm measuring something small, I use millimeters. Now the U.S. Customary System, we all know that 12 inches is a ruler. So there's 12 inches in a ruler, also known as 1 foot. 1 foot. All right, so 12 inches is a foot. Now the units on a ruler, they also have little lines. The smallest one is 1/16, then there's 1/8, then there's 1/4, then there's 1/2, and then there's an inch. And there's 12 of those inches in a foot. So that's kind of how that system works. So if we were to look at a ruler, here's kind of a ruler zoomed in. We can see 2.5 inches of it. So the white area is 1 inch. Okay, it's an inch. That's easy. And then we just cut it in half. If it's exactly half of that, then it's 1/2 an inch. If it's half of that, it's 1/4 of an inch. If it's half of that, it's 1/8 of an inch. And you can see all the way across the ruler is a whole bunch of eighths. Now if it's half of that, it's a 1/16 of an inch. That's getting pretty small, but it's still not as small as a millimeter. And there is half of a 1/16, which would be 1/32 of an inch. You could actually go 1/64 of an inch. That's probably pretty close to a millimeter, but they don't even have lines that small on a ruler. So if you look at that on the screen here, that is about as small as a typical ruler gets. And for general like construction and building big things, you know, you could probably be off a 1/16 of an inch in something big. And so Americans are like, yeah, it's fine. Rulers, you know, measuring tapes, we'll just use feet and inches, right? And we can be off a little bit. But if you're wanting to be more, sorry about that. If you're the Huskies, say hi. If you're wanting to be more accurate, you probably want to go millimeters. So, what do you do when it's more than an inch? You have to count the whole number first. So look at this ruler. So we've got 1 and 1/4, right? So you count the whole number first. So it's more than an inch. It's not more than 2 though. So we say it's 1 inch and, but we read it as, now look at the red arrow, it's at 1/4. So we read this as 1 and 1/4 inch. And people just kind of abbreviate that. It's 1 1/4. 1 1/4. You know, you can see how it could get complicated pretty fast. If it's like 2 and 2/16, 2 and 5/8. Now that's the problem with the English system. Complicated fractions. It works, but you have to understand the fractions. So in summary, there are 2 measurement systems. The metric system, every line's a millimeter, and every number is a centimeter. And there's 10 millimeters in every centimeter. The U.S. Customary System Having, doubling, fractions, a little more complicated, but right now that's what we use. In my class, you will become more familiar with the metric system because that's what I prefer. So you have 2 assignments. 2. Find 2 objects in your house. Anything. Doesn't matter what. Keep them pretty simple. I've got a can of soda. So measure it in millimeters. So I want 3 dimensions: height, width, depth. So height is top to bottom, width is side to side, depth is front to back. So measure something in millimeters. I would like you to sketch it and put dimension lines, right? So it should be a drawing of this soda can with lines that say it's this tall, it's this wide, it's this deep. You can then either on the bottom half of that paper or flip it over or a whole nother sheet of paper, draw something else and do it in inches to the closest fraction. Same thing, height, width, depth. You'll have 2 drawings. You can then take a picture with your phone and put it in a Google Doc. A little technology here. Take a picture with your phone, probably email it to yourself, put it in a Google Doc, put your name on it, date on it, share it with me, Brian.Johns at boiseschools.org, and that's it for this assignment. I will see you soon. Mr. Johns out.